Hey everyone. Yeah, I thought I'd come here and talk about something. Now, when I did my Sonic Comic News video yesterday, which will be uploaded probably later on today or tonight or tomorrow, depending. Saturday, so my mom's going to be doing her homework today, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. Because she kind of takes her time with it, even though it's 18 questions for this section in her homework. They get harder, and she kind of takes her time. She's kind of old school. She tries to figure it out, write it out, and then get to the answer. But anyway, with that said, excuse me. With that said, yesterday during that Sonic Comic News video, I talked about the upcoming issues, especially at the beginning of 2016. I talked about, and I've even talked about this before, how I feel that this whole situation with the Shattered World Crisis arc is going to come to an end in 300. Excuse me. Because when one thinks about it, we've already did the reuniting of the characters. That part is taken care of. We have already gotten the Chaos Emeralds, a majority of them, in the hands of the Freedom Fighters, and the other, at the time, before the crossover, in the hands of Eggman, but now totally is unknown, possibly will end up back in the hands of Eggman, or is ended up in the hands of the Nagas twins, Walter, aka Axis Nagas, and Windy, aka Windy Witchcraft from Tails Sky Patrol. Or Tails Adventure, whatever. So anyway, we've got those parts. We've got the emeralds, with the exception of one, already lined up in place. So now we're in another portion. Now, during these other acts as well, we already established the subplot of Sonic becoming a werehog and getting that under control. And we've established that the Dark Gaia energy and the monsters from Dark Gaia can emerge at night. Not only do they emerge at night, but the Dark Gaia energy itself can have, depending on the situation, can have a profound influence on people's attitudes. If you want a good example of this, take a look at Spark of Life. You have a few panels of Sally arguing with Dr. LED, and only then does she realize that it's the Dark Gaia energy, the mist from the Dark Gaia energy that's infecting their emotions. So we've already kind of played into that a little bit, and we'll probably play into that even more down the line. But now we're getting into the Gaia temples. Basically the temples from Sonic Unleashed, yes, but also the Gaia temples that will help restore things to the way they are. And, well, hopefully help restore things to the way they are. Now, excuse me. Now this, of course, to me, is not just possibly the third and final act of this story arc, but this is going to be something that will hopefully culminate as we get to the 300th issue. Now, how we get there is quite intriguing, because the solicits for 280 of the main comic indicate that when we get to January, we'll be 20 months away from 300. We'll be 20 months away. So, with that said, the question is, how do we get there? How do we get, not just from now, but starting in January, how do we get to 300? How do we build to that in this, what I consider could be the third act, the third and final act of the Shattered World Crisis? Well, I think in a way it's 280 setting the door, or setting the steps, the doors, or opening the doors, setting everything up for the possibility that Eggman, not saying this would happen, I mean, I did talk about it in the Sonic Comic News video, but to me, this sets up the possibility that opens the door and sets up the possibility that Eggman is going to have to team with the Freedom Fighters whether he likes it or not. Because maybe it's going to take this whole thing with the Nagas twins to make him realize, okay, maybe this isn't such a good idea to try to get the Death Egg powered by Dark Gaia energy, because I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we could kind of get a glimpse of maybe what will happen to the Death Egg, like maybe the Dark Gaia energy, Dark Gaia herself will use the energy to corrupt the Death Egg. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen, and it's going to basically, she's going to control the whole thing, and it's going to turn on Eggman, something like that. That's what I'm assuming could happen. I'm assuming. But that's something we have to look at, possibly. I also look at the fact that you know, when you add in troll wizards, I guess they're known as troll wizards now, because Axis deals, I mean, I guess we can't use the Axis name anymore. But anyway, the wizards of Nagas and Windy, when you bring them into play, and you basically, in the solicits for the Eggman arc starting in January, indicate that they have gained control of the Dark Gaia energy, thus have gained control of Eggman's forces, his bases. When you look at that, it sounds like to me that there's going to be more to them controlling this. Like, I believe what we see here is they could be used as puppets. We don't know much about Dark Gaia unless you've played Unleashed. And if they're using that version of Dark Gaia, then who knows. But anyway, we don't know much about the comic form. So this Dark Gaia could be very manipulative. In other words, could use those with dark desires, dark ambitions, evil intention, if you will, as puppets to allow her to be freed, to allow her to, you know, really cause destruction. If you catch my drift. So the Nagas twins could just be puppets, pawns in a Dark Gaia game, just like Eggman's probably going to be, which again would lead me to believe she's going to take control maybe of the Death Egg, and that's going to be like a body for, like a home base for her, and what Eggman has planned is going to backfire in his face, and again it's going to lead to him, in my opinion, going to the Freedom Fighters for help. So, or joining with the Freedom Fighters to help them restore the world, much to his reluctanceness. He's going to have to realize, okay, the only way I can get back to trying to conquer this world, if it's in one piece, and this Dark Gaia is subdued, basically. So, that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. That's my opinion. That's what I speculate could happen. That's what I speculate could happen. And these are huge possibilities, folks. Really huge possibilities. I mean, you got some revelations that are going to be revealed in a story arc that is kind of side by side in the main comic involving Sally and Bunny and Clove and her sister. So that's going to be, that might, you know, play into things. You know, you got other characters out there. I mean, you know, you got Blaze, of course, is probably going to play into it soon. You got Luke coming back. You got Dulce coming back. They got to play a role, major role, if you're bringing them back. So it's going to be really interesting on what happens in the next 24 months. That's right, 24 months. As we hit 300. Because I believe, again, in my opinion, that's how long it's going to be. I mean, you basically started this thing back in 252. We've already gone through one anniversary issue with it, that was mainly dedicated to the crossover. But you've already surpassed one anniversary issue with it, and in a sense, by the time you get to 292, that'll be 40 months, 40 issues into this. And as you get to 300 and 302, you're looking around 50 issues. So I'm assuming that by the time we get to 300, maybe 302 at the most, but I'm assuming more along the lines 300, that is going to be where this whole story arc culminates. Now it could happen sooner than that. It all depends. But I look at the fact that as we get to 300, this is where it's going to culminate. It really is. I mean, when you think about it, everything kind of, from 252 to here is about, like I said, almost 50 to 300. It's going to be about 50 issues. Be 2 issues short if they want to get to 50, which would make sense. It'd be like it's been 50 issues since this whole thing began, and now 50 issues later, it's finished. Now, some people may say, well, that's not totally true. You got to discount the crossover issues. And you could discount them, and you could say, okay, that's actually not 50 issues, it's 47 issues, but still, it could be 45 issues when you look at it. But the point is, it doesn't really, but the point is, I don't think it really matters whether you discount the crossover, the 3 issues of Universe and the main comic that we used for the crossover, and say, okay, it's been that long. I think it's more along the lines that you got to look at the fact that in the next 24 months, 2 years from now, 24 months, 2 years from now, things are going to change. I mean, they got it timed perfectly that as you head into that fall season of 2017, that's where it's all going to come to an end, and we're going to embark onto something new after that. I mean, think of it this way too. From a financial standpoint, well, not financial, but from a franchise standpoint, you also want to make room to promote the movie when it starts to come to fruition. So you want to take this major story arc, get it done, and then focus on standalone arcs maybe down the line to where you can also allow people not just to pay attention to what goes on in the comic, but also kind of keep an eye on what's going on with the book, with the movie, I should say. So that's why I think it's going to come to an end, so that way you can focus more on the movie as well as still pay attention to the stories. But that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion on it. I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's not, or it is going to happen, but it definitely sounds like, in my opinion, it will. What I look at mainly with the comic, with getting to 300, is all the different elements of how to get there. We know they're going to have to get another chaos. They're going to have to find the last Chaos Emerald. We know that's going to come into play. But like I said, since that part has already been established and taken care of, and this is more about the Gaia, and now we're into the Gaia Temple deal, finding the Gaia keys and the Gaia Temple deal, and the Gaia Temples and the Guardians of the Gaia keys and temples. This is what, to me, is going to lead into that climax around 300 or so. Because you're leading to a point that not only is it established already in the comics that these along with the Chaos Emeralds and everything, and of course Chip being the light Gaia, if you will, being the keys, if you will, being the final pieces of the puzzle that will piece the world back together. But again, it's just, to me, it's just too evident that we're getting into that area now. I mean, when you think about it, we had the revelation that Rhoda's dad's working for 8-Bit. Okay, to some people, it may not have been a revelation, to some it was. We have other characters. We have this Nefertiti egg boss coming, based around an Egyptian goddess kind of thing. We have her coming into play. We have Loop coming into play, which I think is going to take part of that Nefertiti, if it's who I think it is, or who I think it's based off of from the original timeline. And you have Loop coming into play at that same time, maybe. Kind of gives you an idea who it might be. And then Dulcie, of course, is coming in. We all know they want to work on her background, basically her being a mythical dragon, her being, with these special powers and everything. Well, not a mythical dragon, but being a dragon with these special powers and stuff. So we'll see that down the line. And of course, you got to establish Cream. I mean, Cream here is a young a freedom fighter in training, but you also got to build to the point that you got to do a story arc or something that's going to make her full-fledged, just like Amy Rose. Well, Amy Rose became in the original timeline. But to me, these are things that need to be worked on, need to be built upon, and need to be focused on as we head to 300. And I think they will be. I think these will be the things that I just mentioned will be focused on as we get to 300, and they will play a major factor as we get to that point too. Now, as far as the climax, again, I kind of gave my ideas, and my ideas are like this. You can't, if this Dark Gaia is as powerful as she's being described, she's being described, then I believe, in my opinion, it's going to take super forms, not just from Sonic, Tails, maybe Shadow, maybe Knuckles or anything. It's going to take everybody going super. And that's the honest truth. Sally going super, Amy going super, Rotor, Antoine, the main freedom fighters going super, along with Sonic, Tails, and maybe even Knuckles. And Shadow, perhaps. But mainly I think Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and the freedom fighters, I think, in my opinion, will go super to make a climax again, for this climax against Dark Gaia. I really do. I think they're going to go super, and that's how Dark Gaia is going to be defeated, and things are going to be restored. And they're going to go super not just due to the 7 Chaos Emeralds, but they're going to go super also due to the fact that you got combining the Chaos Emerald power with the Dark Gaia, with the Gaia Temples and the Gaia Keys and Guardians. I think that obviously shows that you're going to have Supersonic, Turbo Tails, Hyper Knuckles, whatever, as well as super versions of the Freedom Fighters. Because I think obviously that's something that a lot of fans, artistically from a fan art standpoint and storyline as well, want to see happen. And I think Ian Flynn, Aaliyah Baker, and even Evan Stanley know about, and Tracy Yardlin know about. Those 4 people, they know that. No fans want to see that, and I think that hopefully they'll make that happen, because if this Shadow World Crisis is and will be built up to being something big, to really establish the reboot, the soft reboot of this comic and the characters, then you've got to go in that direction. And that's how I feel, in my opinion, it should end, and I'm speculating that it's going to end. With everybody, from Sonic, Tails, Knuckles maybe, but Amy, Sally, Bunny, and Rhoda and Antoine all going super. And it might be the only time we see them go super. I mean, we saw Nicole become Overclock Nicole, so, in Spark of Life, so if that doesn't tell you that the non-game characters can go super in the comics, I don't know what does. So that's why I believe, when I saw Overclock Nicole in Spark of Life, just like anybody else, in my opinion, it opened the door for characters like Sally, like Bunny, like Amy, who should have already gone super anyway, in the comics as well as the games, in my opinion. Rotor, Antoine, it opens the door for them to go super as well. So that's what I feel is going to happen, in my opinion. That's what I'm speculating is going to happen, because like I said, her becoming Overclock Nicole just for one time in Spark of Life opened the door for that to happen. And I think the holding off on that happening as we get to the conclusion of the story arc, possibly around 300 or so. And and this is another thing, in my opinion, that I think, and I'm speculating that they're going to also do, is to hint that might happen, that as we get towards it, you might see several, stories, whether the multi-part stories or not. We might see some hints of the characters showing signs of going super. Showing signs that they could end up having a super form, which again, to me, can culminate in that climax. So that's what I feel is going to happen in the climax. I'm speculating will happen. It's just my opinion, though. But the way I look at it, as I mentioned throughout, there's a lot of factors that play in. Because right now we're in the Dark Gaia Temple deal, portion of it. We've got one more Chaos Emerald